everyone. So we're going to make a start. So I'm Sophie, and welcome to the first in a series of webinars about business agility. So like I say, this is the first one that we're going to be doing. And this one, the title is 3 Ways to Improve Your Scrum Practice. All the information you're going to hear today is taken from our professional Scrum Master course. And there's going to be a Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box that you can see on your screen, and we'll come back to them at the end. So now I'll introduce Mark Eaton, who's one of our trainers here at Cert Limited, and he's going to be leading the webinar today. So hi Mark.
Hi guys, as you can see from the screen, I'm not going to be long. I'm only going to be about 15 minutes. The stuff that we're going to talk about, we've taken from our professional Scrum Master course, which is a 2-day course, which is available right now. If you want to go on the website and book that, and if you keep listening, we've got something exciting for you all right at the end. So if you keep listening, as Sophie said, if you want to put your questions down in the question and answer section, so we'll pick those up, and we'll pick those up. I'm going to take about 15 minutes. And then Sophie will sort of ask me the questions, and we'll go through the questions in a Q&A session at the end. So without much further ado, let's go into it. So today's webinar is just looking at how to improve your Scrum practice. And we're just going to look at 3 ways. I'm not going to try and cover every way that you can to improve your Scrum practice, but we're just going to look at 3 simple ways that you can to actually improve your Scrum practice. And I assume that for those of you who are interested, you've downloaded the Scrum Guide. If not, I'm going to encourage you to do that. That's really important. It's a free download, scrumguides.org. Yeah, or just type Scrum Guides into any of your search engines and download that one. So we're going to look at these 3 ways to improve your Scrum practice. And the 3 ways that I'm going to talk about, the first one is by developing your Agile mindset and just being more agile. So yes, Scrum, as most of you will be aware, is a little bit of a subset of Agile. It's a framework within the wider Agile thinking. So the first thing we're going to look at is how do we become more agile in our thinking. We're then going to talk about empiricism, okay, and how that applies within the Scrum framework. And then finally, just something a little bit personal perhaps, which is team identity, okay? And actually making sure that your team understand that they are part and parcel of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. As I said, this is really aimed at Scrum Masters, but if you're a product owner, yeah, or a member of the development team, or even if you're just a stakeholder which orbits around the Scrum team, then you will benefit from today, okay? So let's talk about the Agile mindset. Okay, and the Agile mindset, there are 2 key elements to it as far as I'm concerned, 2 prerequisites almost. And one is that we call our courses professional. Okay, and as you can see, we've got Ken Schwab's definition of what professional means here. But really, for me, it's about being disciplined. A lot of people think that the Agile frameworks can be applied in an undisciplined way. Okay, in other words, just do it, it'll be fine, okay? But it's not. You've got to apply discipline. You've got to apply discipline in your process. You've got to apply discipline in your estimating. You've got to apply discipline in your approach to the work, etc., etc. You know, there's a lot of things that we need to act in a professional way. The other one is, continuous improvement, or Kaizen, the Japanese word for continuing improvement. And it's really important that when we talk about our Scrum journey, that we appreciate that it's about self-improvement. Okay, you're not competing against anybody apart from yourself. How do I get better, or how does our team get better? Okay, so 3 areas of improvement. Okay, let's dive straight in to the Agile mindset. Now, most of you will be aware, if you've done anything around Agile and been on any Agile training, of something called the Agile Manifesto for software development, created in 2001 at the Snowbird Resort at by the key leaders within the software development Agile framework at that point in time. And this is going to seem a really simple step, but read the Agile Manifesto and start to think, do I demonstrate these values in the way that I work? Okay, so the first one there, let's just take that first one. Do we value the individuals in our team and the interactions between the individuals in our team over the processes and tools that we got in place? So for example, if one of your team challenges you and says, you know, I don't think that this particular tool, let's take Jira for example, yeah, I'm not getting the value that I'm expecting to get out of Jira. What's your reaction to that? Is your reaction, well, we've spent lots of money, you're going to stick with it? Or is your reaction, well, let's find something that's more valuable, okay, that actually can deliver value? It's the same with organizational rules. Yeah, I know several organizations and a number of our learners have come to us and said, you know, oh, we don't deploy on a Thursday or a Friday. And I've gone, why don't you deploy on a Thursday or a Friday? Oh, well, we just never have. You know, it's towards the end of the week, it's not a good time to deploy. You know, something could go wrong. Yeah, and we don't like deploying. Yeah, well, once again, if there's value in deploying on a Thursday, yeah, if you've tested your product, you're confident that your product works, deploy on a Thursday. There's nothing wrong with that. If there's value in it, then we need to think about, are we actually following our values? Are we listening to our people? Okay. The third one is often difficult as well. I get a lot of learners who say to me, yeah, but you know, contracts are everything, Mark. We need a contract. And I get that. I get where you've got a commercial relationship between two organizations. You need something that sets the boundaries between those organizations and set the responsibilities. But how do you approach your contract? Is it a battle? Yeah? Are you trying to win all the time? Whereas what the approach we need is a collaborative approach, a win-win approach, because that's how we keep our customers. That's how we ensure that we have a good working product, by making sure that we have a collaborative approach to our contract rather than, you know, the old traditional fixed time, fixed scope, fixed price contract, which, to be quite honest with you, I'm still surprised people do, because the number of times they fail is just indescribable. Okay, so that's my first thing. Yeah, get hold of the Agile Manifesto. Okay, if you type it into a website, it's free of charge, it's free download. Look at the principles behind it as well, where you're encouraged to work in short time periods, where you're encouraged to inspect yourself on a regular basis and inspect the team on a regular basis to see if there's improvement to be found. Okay, that face-to-face communication is encouraged, etc., etc. You know, there are 12 principles that a lot of people, you know, who I come across have never even read. Okay, and you know, I've had colleagues who've never read them. So that's my first thing. If you're going to improve yourself, become more agile. Get hold of the manifesto. Challenge it. Yeah, it was written in 2001 specifically for software development. Is your project software development? Now, I know there might be an element of it, but is there other elements of it? Can you change those values? Can you add to those values to demonstrate that you're being agile? Okay. The second element are the Scrum Values. Scrum is a framework based on a theory of empiricism that we're going to look at in a few minutes. Okay, and the Scrum Values reflect that. The most important one is the one there at the bottom, if I can just highlight it. There we go. Openness. Without being open in the way that you work, transparency is just not a thing. Okay, so we need to be open. We need to be open in the way that we're working. We need to be open in the way that we communicate. We need to be open with our colleagues. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second one is courage. The Scrum framework is designed for complex product development in a complex environment. So you're going to have to be courageous. You're going to have to take leaps of faith sometimes in the way that you're doing. And the Agile framework, remember, encourages this. If you don't know, try it. Okay? Well, one of the best pieces of advice I was given as a developer working in a Scrum framework was, if you've got two ways of doing something, pick the way that you can fix easily first. Okay? Pick the way that you can go, well, if it goes wrong, there's not a massive amount of work to put that right. Yeah. But have courage to do that. Sometimes that's taking the unexpected path. Okay? Be focused on what you've got to deliver. You know, just if I can have a quick aside for our product owners, we've got a webinar coming up in a couple of weeks for our product owners. Yeah, you need to provide that focus. You need to work with your teams. You're not above the team. You need to work with your teams to ensure that they've got a goal, that they've got something for that particular sprint, and they've got an overall goal that they're working to, so that they're focused on what to deliver. Yeah, and they're also committed. They've got something to commit to as well. Okay, and then finally, we've got to respect each other. Remember, Scrum works in a small team environment, and productive small teams respect and trust one another, and that's got to be worked on. Okay, that's a value that you've got to adapt, really. Okay, for your particular circumstance within the culture of your organization. So once again, get out your Scrum guides. Okay, give it a read. You know, look at the blogs and webinars around. Okay, are you displaying these 5 values? And then the last thing that I want to talk about is lean. Okay, and for those of you who are not aware, the lean principles are taken from a Agile framework called Lean Startup, I beg your pardon. Yeah. And it's really important because lean really is the foundation stone for all Agile frameworks. Okay. So first, we start at the top. I'll just move my cursor there. Yeah. We start at the top. What is of value? Okay. What does your customer, what do your users actually value? Okay. And once again, this is not what you value, it's what your customers value. All right? So we've got to remember that the whole point of product development is the ability to deliver value into the customer environment. Okay? So that's the first thing. What do your customers value? What's most important to them? But the classic example that you've probably heard all trainers use is Microsoft Outlook. When you start a new email, you're presented with 3 choices: to, CC, and BCC. Which is the most value to you? When I first started using the example, everybody thought that to was the most valuable. And then you talk to people in marketing who go, well, actually, BCC is of great value to us because that's a way that we can communicate to a lot of people in a very personal way. And you've got to have that understanding, okay? And you can only get that from your stakeholders. The value stream is talking about, actually creating that value and ordering and prioritizing your work so that you can actually create that value. So you create a value stream so that you're giving value to your customer on a regular basis. And that involves you having a flow. All right. Next time you're in Starbucks, watch their flow. Yeah, somebody takes the order, writes it on the cup, passes the cup usually to their left into like a small waiting area. Okay. Then the barista will pick the cup up, look at the cup, notice what the user wants, and will produce the coffee. And then they'll move it to their left into a waiting area for the coffee drinker to pick it up. Okay. And that's a flow. What they've done is they've worked out where things will go, and you'll always notice that if the flow is left to right, the bakery stuff is always on to the left of that. If the flow is right to left, it's on the right hand side of that. So people can choose their bakery items before they order. Okay. And the Starbucks system is a brilliant example of a pull system. Yeah, the order taker doesn't give the cup to the barista; they put it into a waiting area, and the barista pulls it. When they're not busy, the next one they'll pull the next cup out of the waiting area. Okay, and it's a pull system. So rather than being forced to do something, they will choose what work to pull. Okay, so it makes much more sense. And of course, what they've done is they've perfected that over the years, and that's what we want to do as an agile team. We want to work towards perfection, knowing that we'll never get there. So we're always looking for improvement. Okay, always looking for improvement. So that's 3 short, simple ways that you can think about improving your agile mindset. Okay. The next thing that we need to look at is empiricism, the empirical way of working. Okay. And empiricism is rooted in ancient philosophy. Okay. Aristotle was one of the first people that said that empirical working is the way that we develop as humans. And he put forward a theory that we have a blank sheet when we're born and we experience things. And based on our experience, we adjust the way that we develop as human beings and the choices that we make as human beings. Now, rationalism sort of came along a bit later and said, well, hang on a sec, yeah, that's not the way we work. We've got an innate common sense. And really, it's a mixture of the two. But if you put that into the way you work, if you put empirical working, yeah, often referred to as evidence-based management, into the way that you work, yeah, okay, then of course what you do is you can make better choices based on evidence. So for this we need to adopt 3 key, what they call pillars of empiricism. Yeah, the first one is transparency. As a Scrum Master or as a member of the Scrum team, yeah, this is a vital part of your Scrum practice, that you are transparent and you're not scared of it. In fact, it's one of the ways that you should look at the way that you improve. First question of your retrospective, can we be more transparent? Are we transparent in the way that we work? Okay. In other words, are we not working in the small hours of the night so nobody knows exactly what we're doing? Yeah. Okay. Are we transparent in what we're planning to do? In other words, are our plans transparent? Can people see what's coming up next? Are we transparent in our goals? Do people understand where we're going? Yeah. Are we transparent in our communications? Do people understand what we're talking about? Yeah, and transparency, once again, it's really important. It links back to the Scrum value of openness. Yeah, it links back to the Agile Manifesto. Yeah, people and interactions over processes and tools. That we really are transparent, and that one of the key reasons we're transparent is so that the second phase, the inspection, can actually happen. Okay. So do we regularly, and I'm not talking about the end of the sprint. Yeah, at the end of the sprint, we have a sprint review where we inspect, and we have a sprint retrospective where we inspect. But do we do it more often? Okay. One of the techniques that is very popular nowadays with a lot of Scrum Masters is a one-day sprint. What can we achieve, and what did we achieve over one day? Okay. Just to demonstrate that we can do something small but complete. Yeah. So how often do you inspect? How often do you get the team together to look at what you've done? Yeah. Does it work? Is it what we expected it to be? Does it meet the definition of done, etc., etc.? Because the third element is based on inspection. It's adaptation. And the framework and the terminology that we use is pivot or persevere. So do we persevere with what we're doing because we're on the right track, or do we stop what we're doing and we move? It used to be fail fast, but the negative connotations of fail fast. Yeah. Remember, success comes from failure. Okay, very few people are successful first time. Okay, people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and my personal business hero Steve Jobs failed numerous times, and they learned from that failure. So that's why they were successful. So improve your empiricism. Yeah. Be transparent. Look to where you can be more transparent. Inspect regularly. Don't be afraid to adapt. And then finally, guys, a little bit about team identity. If you want to improve your Scrum practice, yeah, a performing team is what you're trying to achieve. That means self-managing. Yeah. I've met a number of Scrum Masters who've been working with performing teams, and you can see they're itching to interfere. Okay? Or managers that are itching to interfere. If you've got a productive team, just let them do it. Okay? But before that, you've got to create that performing team. No team moves to performance straight away. So 3 things to look at. Purpose. Why does your team exist? What's its overall purpose? Okay, what's it there to do? Okay, and that will help you with things like team membership. Okay, because you'll need the skills to be able to do it. Values. What are the values of your team? Yeah. I used to work with a colleague, and one of his favourite things to do was create team agreements. As soon as he had a new team, they all sat down and they worked out how they were going to work, what time they were going to start, what time they were going to finish, what time they were going to do lunches. Yeah, what were the values based on the values of that team? So what values do you have in common? Yeah, what values are you going to adopt in your team? And then finally, and once again, this is to you Scrum Masters and to you the product owners out there. What's the vision? Yeah. What is the vision? Where are you trying to end up? Remember that the old Scrum or Agile adage, yeah? Okay, if you've been on one of my courses, you'll have heard it probably twice every day, yeah? Think big, start small, learn fast. But it starts with think big. Have a vision, have an optimistic vision, yeah, for your team, okay? So those were 3 things that we looked at, and it's all about continuous improvement, guys. Yeah, this is taken out of our Scrum Master course. Yeah, when we talk about impediments. Okay, so when you've identified an impediment, what hurts the most? What's stopping you being productive the most? How does it hurt? Why does it hurt? And then do something to remove that hurt. Okay, and don't be scared if it actually makes it worse, because we can learn from that, learn from it. Go, okay, how do we make it worse? Yeah. One thing that I regularly used to do when I was leading projects and we had problems with the IT build, the infrastructure build, yeah, was we actually put time aside to try and make it worse if we couldn't fix it. So we can't fix it, let's make it worse. Because sometimes by making stuff worse, you realize how to fix it. Okay, and you have to go through that process. So that's me and my little 2 pence worth about how to improve our Scrum practice. Okay, I hope it's been useful. I see we've got 1 question already. So if anybody's got any questions, put them through. But I'm going to hand over to Sophie now to guide us through this one.
So the first question we've got is from Amanda. What would you say is the most important thing she could do to improve?
My number 1 tip for anybody out there who wants to improve is be a learner. Okay, don't be afraid to acknowledge that you don't know everything. Okay, so obviously working for a training company and being a trainer, I'd love to see you on one of my courses. Yeah, because I'm going to ask you to input nearly as much as I do, probably more. Okay, but yeah, subscribe to blogs. Yeah, You know, there's a number of places, Mountain Goat Software, Scrum.org, you know, there's loads of places out there. LinkedIn has got some really cracking groups, but be a learner. Never be afraid. Take every opportunity to learn.
Great.
Cool.
We've had another one coming from Carl. So he says, I find it difficult to create a complete backlog for the start of first sprint. What would you suggest?
Okay, so Carl, I guess you're either a product owner or you're coaching a product owner. The first thing I would say is relax a bit. Okay, it is difficult. Creating a good backlog is really difficult, and trying to create a complete backlog for the start of the first sprint is almost impossible. Okay, yeah. So there's a couple of things you can do with that one. Okay, the first one is you just need enough to get them started, and I literally mean 4 or 5 days worth of work. Okay, so as long as you've got 4 or 5 days worth of work, you can go into the first sprint. You can do your first sprint planning. Remember, sprint planning is not the only time that you plan your sprint. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we have a daily scrum, is so that we can carry on replan. Get your team involved in refining your backlog and creating your backlog. Get stakeholders involved in refining your backlog. Okay, and really, for me, by the end of the first sprint, as long as you've got enough to start the next one, yeah, or perhaps I've got enough to do the next sprint and the next two, that's what you need to do. So yeah, a lot of people get et up about how complete their backlog should be. All that the Scrum Guide does, and you know, if you talk to people of experience, is once you've got enough to get going, get going. Okay, none of this Scrum Zero nonsense and all that type of thing. As soon as you've got enough to get going, get them into sprint planning, get them going for the first 4 or 5 days. Give yourself a bit of breathing room. Give yourself a bit of time to step back. Cool.
Hopefully that was helpful, Carl. We had another couple of questions come in. So one from Mike Fish. My team is struggling to break down user stories to fit inside the sprint during backlog refinement. What should I do? So what would you say to Mike there?
Right, Mike. This is a really important and very on topic, because a lot of teams actually struggle with this. They've identified the bigger story. I need to order food, or you know, I need to be able to sell a particular product, etc., etc. But it's breaking it down. Just a couple of things to look at. The first one is the user. Okay, so my first tip is to write a user story. Okay, if you're not used to user stories, then look it up. Come on one of our courses. But there's loads of resources out there. My first thing is to look at the user. Can you break the user down? Okay, so for example, if you think about somebody, let's think about Uber Eats, or you know, to go. What's that one? Deliveroo. That's it. Excellent. Yeah. You just think of the different users in there. Okay, so you've got your user that wants the food, you've got the user that wants to, you've got the people who want to create the food, you've got the people who are taking the order. You can break it down, you know, simply things like, you know, I want to order food could be broken down by user, and that's a really good start. Another way is to look at the actual requirement itself, what functionality. So I want to pay for my food. You can break that down to, do I want to pay for it cash? Do I want to pay for it by credit card? Do I want to pay for it by debit card? Do I want to use Apple Pay, or you know, the Amazon Pay thing, that type of thing? Yeah, so you can break it down that way as well, and that really helps as well. So there's just a couple of ways that you can break it down, but I really would encourage you to look at user stories, because once you've got a good user story, that makes it so much easier to actually break down as well. Okay.
That was a great question, Mike. Thank you very much for that. We've got a last one in from Olivia. We outsource our development work, and the contract doesn't allow for much in the way of change. What would you suggest I do? So what advice have you got there for Olivia?
This is very difficult. I don't know what your personal situation is, Olivia, whether you're outsourcing abroad, you know, or you're outsourcing into the domestic market. And it is very difficult, particularly once you've got the contract in place. Okay, because then your supplier's going to use that as a bit of a shield if they can do. Okay, There are a couple of things that I would suggest. Part of the Agile Manifesto is that the customer and the supplier talk on a regular basis. So I don't know how often you communicate with your supplier, but try to be more regular. Try to form that relationship, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and you can only do that by more regular contact. If they're using Scrum, or if they're using an Agile framework and they have daily stand-ups, try to attend. Now, obviously, where there's a time zone element to that, you might be getting up very early. Or, you know, if it's something out in America, you might be having to stay up very late and go to bed very late. So there's that to it as well. You know, they shouldn't be stopping you attending the daily stand-up as an observer. Okay, remember, it's not your job to interject. It's the meeting's for them, but you can observe. And then finally, do they have a dashboard? Do they have something like Jira or Teams, okay, or Confluence or Trello or something like that? Something that you can access and tap into. Once again, this is the transparency bit. Yeah, this is you being proactive about the way that you do. And once again, you know, if they're using Scrum, chat to their Scrum Masters. Okay, find out who the Scrum Masters are within their organisation. Sit and have a chat. Explain your predicament and the fact that you need more information, or you need more collaboration, and they should support you on that. Okay, they should be working towards that. And they're on their journey, you're on your journey, and sometimes when you're on different parts, it's hard to sync up. But yeah, there's a couple of things that you might want to try.
Fab. So that's it for the Q&A session. So thank you all for your questions, and thank you to Mark. That was great. So thank you everyone for participating. So Mark mentioned earlier a little bit of a treat that we had in store for you for participating today. So on your screen, you'll see a discount code to get 20% off all of the Scrum training courses we offer here at Certain Limited. So if you want to learn more or participate in those, feel free to use that. But yeah, that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining in today.
Hopefully I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.